I pretended to be insane to avoid being conscripted into the Russian army. After spending 3 weeks in the asylum, I realize I'm the only sane one here. After the events that had transpired the week before, Vovoda was more careful before sending us into the abandoned wing. She started demanding that at least one nurse should accompany us. I have to say, it's a breath of fresh air. Not only do I feel more comfortable that someone sane is in there with us, but they also keep other patients in check. Also, I must say, after them being so rude and inconsiderate to all of us, it was pleasing to see them shiver in fear. I'm sure they also hear the whispers coming from those halls and rooms. Some of them even tell us to quit pranking them and that it isn't funny. But mostly, they keep to themselves. They don't speak out. They're on our territory, and they rely on us to give them protection from the things that dwell there. This week has been the toughest of them all. I thought that by cleaning up the wing, we were supposed to make things better. By bringing order, we were supposed to calm whatever had dwelled there. But it seemed that the deeper we were going, the more insane things were getting. It felt like instead of pushing it all away, we were getting closer to its source. I've started seeing unsettling dreams. Dreams of a dozen cages deep underground, of long cables stretching into the darkness from which I could hear the buzzing of electricity and rambling of men and women. The ground slightly shaking, as well as a sinister deep humming sound in the background. A humming sound that constantly changes its pitch and can be heard only when someone talks. That dream is a recurring one. I've seen it more than once, sometimes vividly, and on other days I can barely remember it, but it's almost always there. I'm scared to talk about it to the others, but I can see that they don't sleep very well either, which, considering where we are, isn't surprising. I sometimes hear Sasha's whispering coming from empty rooms, accompanied by the female laughter. It seems that the girlfriend he'd found for himself was really having fun with him. In any other circumstances, with a different context, I would even be glad for him. But I still can't forget his footprints in the pool of blood. Others aren't faring much better. Anton has been the first among us to tell us that he's hearing the whispers. The same ones he'd heard coming from the apartment below him, where, according to him, his neighbors had been conspiring to kill him. He says that he hears the heavy footsteps like the ones he'd heard in the apartment below him. And he's afraid that the cultists who'd lived there came back for him, or sicked their ethereal familiars at him. He was talking very convincingly, and yet, when someone tells you something so crazy, it's hard to keep a straight face. Sapog started talking about his past 3 wives. He said that they were the ones who'd locked him in there so that they could take all the money he'd earned working for the local crime boss. He said that he'd heard other prisoners tell him about that. You can learn all kinds of things over a prison's grapevine, he mentioned with a meaningful look. And Marone, despite usually being the sanest of the bunch, started talking about strange things. He'd usually pick a time when we were alone, and then he'd start talking about the secret experiments that he'd seen being ran underground. About the documents that confirmed the existence of some underground facilities. Of a machine that could cause earthquakes and was running to this day, drawing power from some unknown source. Whenever I asked him to show proof, to show me the documents that he had supposedly found. He always refused or found some lame excuse. But things were also getting better. This week, we've finally finished cleaning up the wing. We've reached the end of the corridor. Throughout the last few days, Vovoda was personally following us. When I first heard that she'd be the one to go in there with us, I felt devastated. It was already hard. I didn't need her to keep screaming at us for working too slow. But surprisingly, she was quiet. And it was the first time I'd ever heard her talking normally, without shouting. I must admit that I was almost hypnotized by her calm voice. When you expect her to roar at you at all times, hearing her speak like a normal human being feels nice for a change. Almost soothing. It's like coming to hell to find out that instead of drowning the sinner in boiling acid, they serve chocolate ice cream there. Not the best ice cream, but you're still satisfied since you know the alternative. Throughout those last 2 days, she'd been searching through the old cabinets. She'd instructed us to bring her all the documents and paperwork we'd found. Sometimes when she'd find something worthy of her interest, she'd put it inside a folder she kept at her side. And throughout those 2 days, I watched her folder grow and get thicker. I feel like Marone may have been right. She is looking for something there. And I think that the entire cleanup was just a ruse. A cover. And it seems like on Friday, we finally found what she'd been looking for. In hindsight, it was clear from the beginning that that door would be the one to hold something like that. It was made of the same dark wood as the door that kept the abandoned wing sealed off. Just as massive and imposing, with a massive thick chain holding it closed. The only reason we hadn't spotted it before was that it was behind the corner. At the very end of the corridor, we had to clean up everything else before getting to it. The dust next to it had been littered with footprints of all sizes, coming to and from the door. After the four of us had unsealed another door, we'd found a spacey room inside. One half of it was lined with rusty iron beds. Some of them still adorned their handcuffs. The other one was separated by a massive grate that stretched from one wall to another, with a lone gate at the center being locked with the hanging lock. On the other side of the cage, I could see a massive table, a chair, and a few file cabinets, as well as something that looked suspiciously similar to a gun cabinet. The furthest wall had a stairwell leading down, as well as an old, out-of-place elevator, the one you'd expect to find in a mine or a factory rather than in an asylum. It seems that we'd found a checkpoint of some sort. I remember Marone's words and shuddered. Perhaps he was onto something. "Stay away! Get out of here, you lunatics!" Voda burst in, screaming bloody murder. Though she was furious, I could see that spark in her eyes. Jackpot! She was too overwhelmed with emotion to conceal that from me. "Get out! Feast your eyes on something else!" She screamed at us and pointed at the door. "Go to your rooms, you're done here." "You're welcome," I whispered. I thought she couldn't hear me, but as usual, I underestimated her. "What did you say?" She roared at me. "Stop, all of you!" she demanded. We all did. She came closer to me, looked me straight in the eye. "Say that again." "You're welcome," I said, rising to the challenge. "You know, you could be a bit more grateful to us. We've done all of this hard work for nothing, so at least treat us with dignity. With dignity? She laughed into my face. I felt the smell of her breakfast was over me. People will treat you with dignity when you're out of here. Here, you're just a crazy lunatic, sent here for me to look after you, because none of you could fit into the society out there. I told her that I'm not acting crazy, and that she could at least take that into account, but she just laughed again, far more ominously than before. It was a laughter that promised me nothing good. Vavoda's words still rang in my ears. You're all the crazy ones. Do you think you three are the only ones special in here? You, she pointed at Anton, had burned the entire building he had lived in, claiming that his Satanist neighbors wanted to kill everyone there. A family nearby burned to a crisp, including a young girl. Anton squirmed when Vavoda mentioned her. Still hearing her beg you for ice cream, huh? She wondered with a smirk, before turning towards Sapog. You killed 2 of your wives because you thought they worked for the police and wanted to rat you out. And you killed your aunt when you thought that she was one of your wives as well. Didn't you? She asked Sapog. They've gotten what they deserve, Sapog whispered, and I saw the embers of mad fire light up in his eyes, the fire of righteousness and anger. And you, she turned to me. You think you're the smartest one, huh? Think you can dodge the draft by hiding in here? You still think you're all right? How do you know about that? I said, becoming pale. I was confident that none of the nurses had known about my plan, and I was extra cautious to make sure it stayed that way. The doctors were only supposed to know about the things I told them. Vavoda pursed her lips. Honey. That word sounded like poison when it dripped from her lips. You won't shut up about that to your imaginary accomplice. You keep walking around and talking to him about how you've tricked everyone. Haven't you realized that yet? Have you been taking your pills? I wanted to ask her who she was talking about, but I already knew. I looked around to ask him to tell her that she was wrong, but he was nowhere to be found. Marone, my friend since day one, the one who had come up with the same plan as me, had gone missing just at that moment, when I needed him the most, making me look like I really was the crazy one. I knew that she was talking about him, but that was just another game of hers. She wanted to get inside my head, make me believe that I've made him up. Perhaps he was even in on the game. Maybe they'd conspired against me and came up with the plan to make me look like I was truly crazy. Why? Who knew? Perhaps she'd promised him something in return. Perhaps she saw that 2 of us were sane and thought that one loony is better than none. After all, if we're sane, then we're out of her jurisdiction. She wants to stay in control. I had seen Marone only once since then. The coward hides from me. He's too scared to look me in the eye. He only dared to show up yesterday at the entrance to the abandoned wing, not too long after Vavoda had left it. He was waving for me to follow him there, but I see through him now. He wants to have me caught there, to have another proof that I'm crazy, that I'm going to the places where I'm not supposed to be. Well, we'll see about that. Perhaps if I catch him there, out of Vavoda's sight, then I'll show him what happens to those who conspire against me. Hey guys, 4-Shot Pauses here. I want to thank you guys for checking out this video, and I want to thank TheScandalist for letting me narrate this story. It's been really interesting, and I love it, honestly. And I can't wait to narrate the next two parts and the parts to come as well. I hope you guys are staying safe out there, and just stay creeping. And if you guys want to submit a story to me, I got a subreddit. It's called 4 Shots Crypt. And if you just want to have me narrate a story for you, just upload it to there, and I will DM you to make sure it's alright with you.